the Asian elephants with the mammoth, the pink pigeon with the dodos, and even the northern quoll with the Tasmanian tiger, and obviously the red wolves with the dire wolves.
The Mercedes-Benz Interview Lounge.
We're so excited. I'm excited, first of all, for Gandhi, because Gandhi is extra excited about the excitement.
Yeah.
The excitement is exciting. We'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
This is going to be a great conversation. Ben Lamb and Beth Shapiro from Colossal Biosciences, this incredibly cool company you're going to learn about in a second, they are here to talk about many things you've been seeing in the news. Last week, there was a big, huge announcement about the dire wolf. A lot of people are like, what do you mean, this dire wolf? What's a dire wolf? Well, this wolf is, I'm going to let them explain to you in just a second about that. Then maybe several months ago, you heard Gandhi all giddy and doing cartwheels over the colossal woolly mouse.
It's so cute.
It is objectively adorable.
It is adorable.
It is. But Ben and Beth, thank you for being here. Thank you so much for coming in and talking about this. This is so exciting.
I'm
excited. It really is.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I don't want us to go into all of the above until we also talk about the arguably the most critically endangered wolf in the world, the red wolves that you guys have basically brought into our world again through this non-invasive blood cloning technique. And let's start with them, because I love conservation being a big headline at Colossal Biosciences. Talk about it.
No, that's great. I mean, most people just want to make de-extinction the headline. We always talk that, de-extinction and species preservation go hand in hand. De-extinction is not a replacement for modern conservation. We need all of the tools, including new tools to help save species. And so we're very glad to talk about the red wolves. But on the path to de-extincting the dire wolf, we actually developed some new, really great technologies, which we're open sourcing for the world. One of which is how to isolate a type of cell called endothelial progenitor cells, which is not fully differentiated. It's really easy to cultivate, and then it's great for biobanking, so for backing things up and protecting them, and it's great to clone from. And it's also non-invasive, so you don't have to take a skin biopsy, an ear punch, or anything for the animal, so it's even better from an animal welfare perspective. And then we use that technology to actually make 4 red wolves, and to your point, red wolves are the most endangered canids on the planet. They're the only wolves that were endemic here to the United States. So I think it's really, really important that we're not just thinking about the theory of applying de-extinction technologies to conservation, but doing it in real time. And most people don't even know that we made more red wolves than dire wolves.
Wow. Okay. I love it. By the way, the dire wolves, I saw the photos, I saw the videos. I want one immediately. I don't know when we're going to have them.
Yeah.
I don't know when we're going to start adopting those.
It's the second most, or the third most popular request. The first is they want dinosaurs. The second is they want woolly mice. And now we're getting the flood of DMs and messages of that they want teacup dire wolves, which is
Oh
not.
my God.
Teacup.
Like
Which is not
chihuahua dire
currently on our plan.
One step at a time. So Beth, I mean, the first thing I'm sure many of our audience members are thinking, they're thinking of Jurassic Park. They're thinking of people running through this gated park and being killed by pterosaurs and things. I don't know. What is it you guys are doing? What do you guys not at all.
That's a new concept.
What is it you are doing that's sort of related to Jurassic Park, but nothing like Jurassic Park, just to bring it into perspective?
Well, what we are doing is we're getting DNA from remains of things that used to be alive and using that DNA to figure out what it is that made those extinct species look and act like those extinct species. And that, I guess, was the idea for Jurassic Park. They supposedly got DNA from dinosaurs that was in mosquitoes, in amber. I've actually tried that. Because
you're the only one that we know that actually tried that.
And amber is actually not a great storage vehicle of DNA.
No,
apparently.
It's terrible. So amber only forms in a really hot place. It's porous, which means fungi and bacteria can get in there and they just chew up the DNA, so there's nothing left. Dinosaurs went extinct more than 65 million years ago. The oldest ancient DNA that anybody has ever recovered from a bone is somewhere between 1 and 2 million years old, which is way more recent. But most of the ancient DNA, the DNA that's preserved in bones that we can recover, is really much more recent than that, like this last several tens of thousands of years. So we're really thinking Ice Age Park, not Jurassic Park.
Right.
And there's not as many scary animals in the... Well, there's some.
There's a
Well, I mean, is that ever a thought when you sit down and start at base one to start one of these projects? Well, do we really want do we really want to do this? Is this an ethical thing that is good for us to do?
Yeah, we actually have a whole framework for this, right? So we try to think about what are, should we do it? Believe it or not, to the Jurassic Park comment, we get the scientists were so preoccupied whether they could, they didn't stop to think if we should. We've heard that a time or two. Basically, every time we say anything on X or any social media platform. But what's interesting is we actually have a whole framework, right? Like, is it possible? Is there a closely related species that we can help with it? Are there cultural application? Is there ramifications to indigenous and First Nation groups? So we try to take all of that into account when we select these species. And every species we work on actually has a connection to a existing species that's in trouble, right? Like the Asian elephants with the mammoth, the pink pigeon with the dodos, and even the northern quoll with the Tasmanian tiger, and obviously the red wolves with the dire wolves.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was, in fact, this checklist that led us to the dire wolf as really the ideal species for the first de-extinction. Dire wolves are morphologically similar to gray wolves. We know that they are very closely related to gray wolves. They share 99.5% of their DNA. But the other thing that makes gray wolves and dire wolves a really important pair for this is that we know so much about gray wolves because domestic dogs are a gray wolf. And so we have tons of information about how to care for them in the wild, how to do surrogacy, how to interpret anything that changes as a consequence of the work that we're doing. And ultimately, we want these technologies to be able to be applied broadly as a tool for conservation, not a replacement for traditional conservation, but a new tool for conservation. And so we need all of this foundational scientific knowledge, and the gray wolf and dire wolf make that possible in a way that really no other species could.
Well, I'm loving that my little schnauzers are from the gray wolf family. So, I mean, Gandhi, you had them on your podcast before. And
Absolutely.
Give us a reach around to some of the most fascinating things you learned on that podcast that we can bring to light today.
Okay, so a couple things. One, you guys were talking about you figured out that you could, but why should you? Why? Because everyone's biggest question, why bring back a woolly mammoth? What is the benefit of that to society today?
For each of our species, what we're thinking about is how does the ecosystem in which they used to live, how has that ecosystem been impacted by the loss? So in the Arctic, we know that we're missing most of the big animals that used to be there. And we have this amazing resource. And there's a place up in northeastern Siberia called Pleistocene Park, where Russian Academy of Science biologist Sergei Zimov and his son Nikita are doing this crazy experiment where they've imported some of the animals that used to be there. Deer, muskox, bison, horses. And they're looking at what happens when you have the animals there. And they do things like spread seeds and spread nutrients and aerate the soil. And during the winter, they scrape away the snow from the surface and expose the surface of the dirt to the really cold Siberian winter air. And some places don't get exposed to the air, and they stay warmer and wetter because the snow stays on top. And then in the spring, when the snow melts, you get this really interesting, diverse landscape where you have pockets of plants that prefer drier habitat and pockets that prefer wetter. And this means that there are more plants there, and this different species of plants can support different species of animals. And so we see how every species is really intricately tied to everything else in their ecosystems. So what we're doing with our projects is try to identify species that are going to have the most impact if we can put them back. Now, not identical copies of these species. Extinction is forever. It's not possible to bring something back that is 100% identical to a thing that used to be alive. But we can bring back some of these key functions. And when we talk about functional de-extinction, this is exactly what we mean. Bringing back the big animals that can help spread the seeds and spread the nutrients. Bringing back the only top predator of the ecosystem in Tasmania so that we can restore balance to that ecosystem. This is the goal of our de-extinction projects, and then also of our species preservation projects that are tied to these projects, where we can keep these important components of ecosystems there. Because it's going to be way simpler to make sure that species stay alive than it is to try to bring them back.
So is there any point to the argument of things or animals become extinct for a reason at that time? they should have gone extinct for whatever reason. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there because I've heard that thrown against the wall before. Is that a possible true statement?
Well, there's lots of different ways that people think that megafauna went extinct, right? And so, but one of the things that is pretty clear is that the rise of early man at certain population levels on all of the continents and subcontinents, we see a directly inverse relationship to the decline of megafauna, which kind of makes sense, right? It's like if you're working as a group and you're working as a tribe, going after kind of big, large, slow-moving megafauna is a great target, right? If you start moving into from that, into that hunting and gathering kind of way. Now, there's other theories, right, that talk about climate change. There's other theories that talk about rapid cooling. Most likely, and Beth and I spent a lot of time talking about this, is it was probably some combination, right, of anthropologic effects being from human, and as well as changing in rapid cooling in the kind of that Younger Dryas period is probably most likely the reason why we lost a lot of that megafauna.
I think it's important to look at what's happening today. I mean, yes, there has been a rate of extinction that has existed throughout the history of life on Earth, but the rate of extinction today is somewhere between 1,000 and 10,000 times higher than that background rate. And a lot of that is because of stuff that we are doing. I mean, habitats around the world are changing faster than species can keep up. And some of that is climate, and some of that is the way that we are changing landscapes by building towns and cutting off connections and corridors between
overfishing our oceans,
right,
and eradicating entire forests.
And that's really where this technology, I think, has the most potential impact. We need traditional approaches to conservation. We need to do habitat restoration. We need to continue to do the things that have been working for the last 100 years of conservation, but we're still not winning this war. We are still driving species to extinction. There's still the threat that scientists have predicted that in 25 years, more than half of species on the planet will be in danger of becoming extinct, and that's terrifying. We need new tools, and we need tools that can act as quickly to help species catch up as these changes are happening.
Wow, so if you're just turning us on and your head is blowing up like mine, because this is all a lot of information, but it's fascinating as F, if I may say.
Oh my God.
Ben Lamb and Beth Shapiro are from Colossal Biosciences, and if you've read recently in the news about, the dire wolves, those beautiful, cuddly little howling. I love that howl that we haven't heard in how many years?
10,000.
Exactly, and of course, several months ago we were talking about the woolly mouse, which I think is adorable. It is incredible to actually also not forget that a lot of these beings are extinct because of us. We did this. We continue to do it every day. Right? That's the point you wanted to make, right, Nate?
Yeah, we had a conversation. I'm a big nerd like Gandhi when it comes to this kind of stuff. And there are so many species outside of the woolly mammoth and the dire wolf that a lot of people have no idea about. And it's because of man encroaching on these places where these animals were just living their happy little lives. And then, oh, wait, we're hungry. Oh, this dodo bird can't really run that fast. Let's just eat it.
Yum.
And boom, they're gone, right? So it is kind of because of us that a lot of these species aren't around anymore. It's fascinating that you guys are doing this.
I feel like go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and some are direct, right? Like the Tasmanian tiger or thylacine, the Australian government actually put a bounty on their heads to remove them. And so sometimes people say, well, did these things happen naturally? And it's like, no, that's not natural. When a government puts a bounty on your head to kill you and eradicate you, that is not a natural cause of extinction.
So I think a huge part, obviously, maybe the only thing that you guys are doing is things that are going to better humanity, society, the planet right now. And when you were on my podcast, you mentioned something that I found fascinating, and I feel like it needs so much more attention. And it was a microorganism that you guys had pretty much found, one of your researchers. Yeah. And it eats through plastic and leaves behind only carbon.
Yep.
That would change the world dramatically if it can be, I don't want to say mass produced, but if it can be used to get away, to rid ourselves of all the plastic that's there right now. Where are you guys at on that?
Yeah, so part of our mission with Colossal is as we develop technologies that have an application to conservation, we give those to the world for free. If there's applications that have ways that can apply to human healthcare or to actually, helping industrial use cases, we spin those out, right? Because we do have investors, so we have to find ways to monetize. And one of our spin outs is Breaking. It's just breaking.com. It's led by an incredible woman, Sukanya. And Sukanya and her partner Vaskar actually had this discovery at the Wyss Institute where they discovered this microbe that emits this enzyme that actually breaks down every type of plastic. Now, you probably heard about plastic degradation. You've heard of other companies working on it, which is great. We need 1,000 companies working about it. But what's unique about this is they don't have to be pre-treated, right? They don't have to have extra chemicals sprayed on them. The enzymes work just by putting the enzymes in a contained environment with the plastics. And it literally, we call it breaking because it doesn't make smaller microplastics. It breaks the chemical bonds. So we raised a bunch of capital for that business. And we actually have 11 pilots with very large, everyone from textiles to industrial, military use cases and others, where we as humanity build a lot of plastics. And plastic is in so many things that we do, right? We think of it as like plastic bottles, but it's in everything. It's in our clothes. It's in, airplanes. It's in our body. It's definitely in our body, right? And microplastics are a bigger thing. So a lot of the plastic degradation tools out there are just making smaller plastics. That's not helpful. We actually have to disintegrate and break the chemical bonds. And so we are now using synthetic biology to supercharge those microorganisms so that we've already made it where plastic that could never be broken down, so literally never that we know of, can now be broken down in 22 months, and we're trying to get that down under 22 hours.
Yeah, you got to get faster because a lot of people are trying to get rid of those top secret vibrators.
It'll help so many people.
I gotta melt that thing down before Mom and Dad get here. So if you could accelerate that, that'd be awesome.
That's a new pilot that we haven't explored yet.
Yeah.
I'll make sure I bring that up. In the
Hey,
next board meeting.
just talking real world here now.
You have a room of investors right here.
I know you've got a lot. You've got a busy schedule today. If you want to know more about what all of the above, you can actually go back and listen to that podcast featuring Ben and Beth with Gandhi and her Sauce on the Side podcast. Where else can we see you? How can we learn more?
So we try to communicate, right? So we have a YouTube channel, right? We're constantly putting out content. We're constantly putting out content on social. Our website's just colossal.com. It's very easy to find.
Got that. Good for you.
And so please go to it. Please watch it because people get excited about the headlines, right? And everyone's very busy. But like I said, and like we talked about at the top of the show, most people don't even know about the red wolf war because they just focused on the dire wolves. And it's great that everyone in the world is talking about de-extinction and species preservation and the extinction crisis, right? I love that people are talking about that and that projects like the dire wolf did that. But I also want to make sure people understand the applications to conservation.
Gandhi, is there anything you want to do to wrap up?
Yeah, I want to invest in the company, but he said they don't need any, so I'm really upset about that.
Wow.
Yeah. No,
By
I
the
think
way,
it's
Ben,
great. I love what you guys are doing.
Ben, are you interested in buying a media company called iHeart?
We're very, very focused, and I think we've seen a lot of other big tech people buy media companies. Let's see how those shake out.
Okay. All right.
Good
well,
point.
Ben Lamb, Beth Shapiro, we could go on and on and on. You were fabulous for being here, and good luck with everything. We'll keep an eye on you. Thanks so much.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.
The Mercedes-Benz Interview Lounge.